So Mamela, the program continues with sharing some of the story of a Teves, what it meant to be living through that kufa. And for that we're going to ask Rabbi Zalman Wolowik, the Rebbe Shliach in 5 towns, and someone who had the privilege, had the schus of being a Bochur in the years of Tavshim Mem Hey, Mem Vav, Mem Zayin, and will share with us the Avir of 770 and what it was like to be a Bochur in those times. In the meantime, Eden Lach Zogt L'chaim, say L'chaim, verbring a little bit. It's our Yom Tov. It's our Yom Tov. The whole Didan Natzach is all for us. So just to sit and hear Maiselach, if it's only the Niskarim, it's not going to go anywhere. It has to be V'nasim. And it can't be V'nasim unless we say L'chaim. L'chaim, L'chaim.
English. Have to be in English because the recording.
You ever get a chance to dance to the celebration?
So I'll share with you just a little bit of personally our experience. And to us it started on Yud Beis Tammuz, 1985, Toshim Mem in camp. And we suddenly heard the Rebbe addressing us about a topic that we never heard before. We heard the Rebbe's pain about halacha conversions, giyuk halacha, shleimus ha'aretz, the security in Israel. And we heard that pain and that scream. But the Rebbe talking about active live bombs, and not about Iran, He's talking about books, objects that were perceived as a lebedike bombe. It was like something outrageous. We never heard such lashon, such expressions. But we heard the Rebbe's pain, and we got the chill, and we recognized that the Rebbe was, in a sense, bringing us into his pain and sharing it with us in a very deep fashion. And then following came the Yechidus for the guests who came for Yud Beis Tammuz. They had their audience. And again the Rebbe shared his pain. Recognizing the Rebbe sharing it with us, bringing us into his, if we can say, emotion, pain, etc. And then what followed was the court case that started on Yitas Kislev. And I remember I was in Montreal at the time, and one of our mentors was fabringing with us, and I remember him sitting and crying all night. We were younger yeshiva students, and he was crying about the kisei havos, how the foundation is being rocked, is being shaken. We didn't get much, but we knew it was serious. It was intense. And those are from the Fabrengens that we remember, one of our mentors leading it. And he shared the pain with us from a more mature perspective, you can say. We were, after all, children, teenagers, trying to grasp what was going on. We knew we had to say extra tehillim. We knew we had to add in charity, tzedakah. We knew that busloads were going to court, as was mentioned earlier, filling the courthouse, and the interest that was there. We knew that things were happening. We tried to do our share. On Shabbos Chanukah, the Rebbe again addressed it. And we used to get, it was the era that I think that faxes were just starting. There was something called fax on the roll. And we would hear about the Fabrengen, and the Rebbe is reiterating that we're an active group. And we knew we're active. Chabad, how can we not be active? But the Rebbe is reinforcing it, if you remember then, when the Rebbe also addressed to actually put on the building that it belongs to Agudas Sidei Chabad. And we were like living it and reliving it every day. And even after the case was over, you're waiting for a decision. Every single day you're waiting for the decision. You're waiting. You're hoping, is it going to be today? Is it going to be tomorrow? And you're waiting and you're living. And then I had the good fortune that Shabbos and Volchim ordered. I was in Crown Heights. And the Rebbe had what we knew as the pinched nerve. That's when I learned what a pinched nerve is. Sadly, we learned that from the Rebbe. And we learned that the Rebbe was in pain, and his agony and aggravation is affecting his physical health. And it tore us to pieces. The Rebbe didn't come down to daven. He came down to the Fabringen, but not to daven. And I'm coming from Montreal, and we didn't have the luxury of davening with the Rebbe every day and every Shabbos. And you look forward to it, and here you are. And something strange is happening, like really something that we're so not accustomed. And, we're used to the Rebbe carrying us through all times, good times and better times. And here suddenly, we're all at a loss and looking up to the Rebbe. And the Rebbe is sharing his pain. We know that during this whole back and forth of the negotiations, there was a thought, let's just buy out the opposition. If they want money, let's give them money. But the Rebbe insisted, no, it has to go through the system. It has to be a very clear declaration. There has to be something that is decided that we recognize there was a spiritual battle, and the Rebbe constantly reminded us and reiterated that it wasn't just a matter of objects, but there was a spiritual battle taking place, questioning the existence, the vitality of the Chabad as a movement. And it was quieter from the Rebbe's perspective afterwards. I came to New York to learn in September Elul of Toshim and Vav. And joining Ola Torah was a very, very unique place to learn. If you remember the Beis Medrash, it was like a classic modern art place. And we were sitting there in the basement in the winter. We didn't know if it was day or night. And we're sitting there, and it's Teves. And we're getting ready for our test. And there was a payphone right by the entrance to the Beis Medrash, and the phone rings, and suddenly we hear a scream, Didan Notzach. Seconds, the place was empty. Empty. And we didn't walk up Kingston Avenue. We were like in a cloud. You didn't feel yourself. You were somewhat numb from joy. There was the excitement. By the time we got there, no one from outside of New York had gotten there yet, obviously. And we were there. It was initially a very small circle. And, when we read about his Galgulu Becheves Peterburg, that when there were tumble sauces made in the streets of Peterburg during the liberation of the previous Rebbes, and it was like, what does it mean? We heard about it, but we saw it here. It was just an amazing... The joy was everyone's joy in the most unique fashion. You really can't describe it. You really can't describe it. You saw the video. We know it. Today we probably know many more details than we knew then. Many more details. But the feeling is something that we have to try and relive every year. I have to confess, my friends know that I'm, what they call me, somewhat balabatish, as they call it. And I held back from saying L'chaim until after Mincha. I wanted to be cognizant when I saw the Rebbe the first time coming down to be with us during this joy and to be able to, we were hoping and expecting a Sikha talk with the Rebbe. And I recognized that, yes, that's what happens when you are somewhat too organized. And it was, part of it, by the way, was everybody was in a different world. We were everyone. You didn't have to have the l'chaim, by the way. You didn't need the drink. You really didn't. You were in a cloud. You were literally in a cloud. And the dancing continued. Thursday night came the big Sudas Hidah, a formal thank you party. I remember Nat Lewin expressing himself, borrowing an expression from this week's Pasha Torah portion. Ki eich LL 770 vasfori meinenu iti. And that's how he said his focus was, how can I ascend to 770 without these books and the significance of these books with me? Rav Landau Vasholem opened up the Suda Seidah, if we can recall, Yoidu Lashem Chazdoi V'Nifloisav Neodam. It wasn't just unity. All in that room were one person. As the Alter Rebbe describes in the Perek Lev Tanya, that's what took place in that room in 770 and by Chassidim throughout the world. The Farbrengen that went through the night, those of us who remember, Reb Yoel said, L'chaim, Farbreng through the night. Rav Lando, chief rabbi of Bnei Brak, was part of that celebration in the most unique of fashions that I don't think Bnei Brak ever saw before or after, was right there at Hey Teves. It was a very, very, and again I have to confess that I tried to stay somewhat cognizant because I want to absorb it. I know some of my colleagues may disagree and say that's not the way to do it, but okay. You dance.
Maybe now you should do two.
We danced. We danced. We rejoiced. Shabbos break, the Farbrengen, then Motzei Shabbos again, and actually during the Farbrengen. And I'll fast forward to the next year before I go back. Came next year, first annual celebration, and what do? And we remember, it's the first. Rosh Chodesh Kislev, when the Rebbe recovered from his heart attack in 1977, Tov Shelamet Ches, I was a younger child. I remember somewhat what was happening in Montreal. But this was, to me, and to all of us who were there, to many of us, our first of such a celebration. And no one knew how, a Rebbe, who are we to guess a Rebbe? And the Rebbe addressed that sign that was initially very controversial, that was put up on the back wall of 770. And the Rebbe addressed it and its significance and what was said about it. And the Rebbe accepted and shared, as it was the custom, that an event that came up and you came up to the Rebbe and got a bottle of l'chaim to share at the celebration. The Rebbe encouraged that. And again, that first year was marked in tremendous fashion. But there were two things that happened in that year. One was the week after, when the Rebbe put a stop to the week of dancing. Now there are the videos of the dancing of Shimon Lazarov, Zangesund, and the Bodman Chaim, the Shvelevich Shapiro. It was great. It was really great. It was unbelievable. You saw people dancing all night, and many working people went to work all day, and then came back to dance all night. This went on for. And then the Rebbe put a stop to it, and we came back to Old Torah, and we found a very fascinating scene. Anybody remember? Our Gemoras were right there the way we left it, with a pen on the side. It was mamish. Nothing was moved for a week. We were moved, but the objects were there, and the Rebbe gave us an intense schedule, every 10 days a test, which was very interesting and very unique. And then fast forward came Beis Kislev, as you saw in the video. The books were actually returned after the Rebbe spoke about the Tipa Doma, that appeal that Rebbe referred to in a very spiritual fashion, and we didn't know what to expect. So I waited on the side. I can still hear the Rebbe screaming, here we are. And the Rebbe really put us into place in a very unique fashion. He taught us, as he said in the Sikha, the Dan Notzach, what is the victory? The Rebbe screamed at the Farbrengen earlier, the Dan from the Sforim, that when Sforim, books are victorious, that means get to the books. Yes, we had our dancing, we had our l'chaim, we had our joy, and we continue to rejoice. But the Rebbe took us and really grounded us again in the most unique of fashions, as literally, again, took us along the journey. And I heard from someone who was there on the 2nd of Kislev, Beis Kislev, and he was uncomfortable standing outside. He was a Bochur in Old Torah at the time, a year or two older than myself. So he decided he's going to be inside 770. And then, as things will play out, either we'll go out to dance, if that's the thing, because there was, confusion, so to say, what would be the right thing to do. And he described to me once how he's sitting there, like a goody-goody, as we call it, and suddenly the doors storm open, and, hundreds of yeshiva students just storm through the doors, and all are shaken. We all got that wake-up call in the most unique way. Only the way that Rebbe can share it with us. So, the celebration means a lot to us. to share the memories. I mean, I asked a few friends who are here this evening, how do you express it? There is really no way to adequately express in words the joy that we experience, and for that matter, even the pain that we experienced, that we went along that roller coaster, and the challenge, and seeing the Rebbe in pain. But at the same time, when it comes to Teves, we got to relive it. Yes, by buying Sforim. The Rebbe then quoted the Rosh that buying Sforim is as good as writing, or even better, it seems, than writing a Sefer Torah, writing a Torah scroll. You use them, you learn them. The Rebbe reinforced that's where we have the Miftzah, the campaign of buying Sforim. I spoke with a person who was in the furniture business. He says, I'm very grateful to the Rebbe. 2 campaigns put me in business. The campaign of Bayis Moli Sforim, when the Rebbe encouraged every home to be filled with books, and when now we need bookcases. And then after Teves, when the Rebbe said to buy books again, he said, that really reinforced my business. I'm forever grateful. Obviously, when I asked him for a commission to Chabad, it didn't work, but that was another story. But the idea is the Rebbe really allowed us into this, I would say, intimate experience, and made it part of our life, and allowed us to be a part of that simcha and that joy. So the Rebbe should help, that we should have the ultimate nitzachon. We shouldn't just talk about it. We shouldn't just have to relive it as a memory, but we should be reunited with the Rebbe in the very immediate future for who you go later. L'chaim.
L'chaim, l'chaim. No? L'chaim, Shkoyach Zalman, Rabbi Wolowik. L'chaim, l'chaim.